Aloha tubies, Dr. Paul Teich, blinking into you today in my Las Vegas shirt because learning about health or anything having to do with history or science or the body or physiology is kind of like a crapshoot in the United States. And I'm going to explain to you what I mean. Where does diabetes come from? Dairy, meat, or sugar? Can carbs or sugar make you fat? Are they good for you? Are they bad for you? Why is the emphasis on carbs? Why do we think about carbs? How many calories a day should someone eat? These are questions, we might ask ourselves. I'm just blinking in there on this. Where does diabetes come from? When I was a kid and going up through school, because I'm old, I'm not young like you, I was taught that diabetes comes from sugar. Diabetes comes from sugar, eating too much sugar, like eating German chocolate cake or cookies. But the cookie is really, loaded with a tablespoon or so of butter or lard. And that really is where the diabetes is coming from. When we eat dairy or meat of any kind, including cow, pig, fish, poultry, and some very intelligent European friends of mine have actually taught me to stop eating poultry altogether, as that's not even a real meat. It's like tilapia is not even a real meat. Tilapia would be even a worse example. Don't ever eat that. Look up where that is. That doesn't even occur in the wild. We invented it. Where does diabetes come from? When we eat dairy and meat and we get that animal fat. See, we're not actually carnivores, and we're the only animal that continues to eat milk and dairy products after it gets teeth. I mean, we're one of the only ones with prehensile forepaws and the ability to make machines and, figure these things out and so forth. But we all get lactose intolerant. But is lactose in milk naturally, or is it created in the homogenization and pasteurization process? Boy, that's a really good question. Where does diabetes come from? Is it dairy and meat or sugar as a diet, like the Atkins diet? Good. When we eat animal products, there's a Dr. Paul Teich video, I forget what it's called, that's pretty funny, that compares the digestive system of a human to the digestive system of a carnivore, to the digestive system of a human to the digestive system of an herbivore, and it turns out that feeding a human a hamburger or a hunk of bread is as silly as feeding it to a rabbit or a deer. You'd never do that. It's not on its diet. It's not on our diet. Where does diabetes come from? Diabetes comes from something called insulin resistance. When we eat these animal products, the fat actually coats our muscle cells and doesn't allow the insulin, produced in the islets of Langerhans, sent into the blood to change the permeability of the cell membrane so that sugar that's in the blood can go in the cell, and then cell metabolism kicks up, hopefully with that extra sugar, glucose, and so forth. But in the case where we ate meat, the fat coats our cells, and then when the insulin comes in, it can't get into the cell because it has this coating around it from fat, and the sugar stays in the blood and does some pretty nasty things, and that's what diabetes is, that sugar in the blood. It can't get into the cell. This insulin is supposed to change the permeability of the cell membrane so the sugar can get in the cell, but eating the meat causes something called insulin resistance, where the fat from the meat acts like a force field that coats. Like if you ever saw the commercials where they're drinking Pepto-Bismol and you see the pink stuff dripping down while decoding it, that's what's going on. It's coating our cells so that the sugar can't get in. The sugar stays in our blood, and that's diabetes. And that's where diabetes comes from. Why you'd have to eat a giant amount of carbohydrates in order to get fat. So that's where diabetes comes from. When I was a kid, I was taught it's cookies that give it to you, and it's the sugar in the cookies. But they taught it completely wrong. And there's a reason that they did that, and it's insidious, and you'd never guess what it is, but it's coming up. What is the reason? That they concentrate on the carbs. Can carbs or sugar make you fat in and of themselves? You would have to eat a giant amount. I mean, I suppose it is easy to eat 3,500 calories of German chocolate cake, although that then is loaded with fat, causing the insulin resistance, keeping the sugar in your blood. It's kind of hard to eat 3,500 calories of kale and broccoli. You can eat 3,500 calories of beans. I've met obese vegetarians who got fat on lentils. We do have to watch our calories. We'll talk about that. Can carbs in and of themselves make you fat? I mean, if you have to way overdo it in order for carbs to make you fat. New information is that carbs are good for you. I mean, back in the 70s, you'd see, like Californians, and they'd be real skinny, and they'd go, oh, we stopped eating carbs. Are they eating too much protein? What are they eating? Vegetables are carbs. Bread is much worse carbs. They figured out the amount of bread that a human should eat every day, and the amount is zero when you trace the fattening of man goes right along with right when the creation of bread was, and we started to get fatter. Can carbs and sugar in and of themselves make you fat? When you eat carbs, your liver turns it into glycogen, and it's stored in your liver and muscles, and it's either stored as the glycogen or burned as calories. And you really have to eat a lot, but once again, if you're eating 3,500 calories of anything, you're probably going to be pretty fat. Good luck eating 3,500 calories of broccoli and onions. Good luck to you. Why is the emphasis on carbs? Is something like the Atkins diet good? And why is the emphasis on carbs? Don't eat bread. Well, I mean, you're not supposed to eat bread, but, carbs and so forth. That is because the USDA, the Meat Association, and the American Dairy Association don't want anyone saying that the stuff that they sell is bad for you. And they pay companies millions of dollars so that they will report them as good. Right? Actually, eggs, which I was brought up as that's dairy, and eggs are good for you. That cholesterol in that egg is enough to maintain a baby chicken for 30 days. It's such a concentrated form of cholesterol that humans should never eat it, in any form. Some will say, well, if you make a soft-boiled egg and, it's really soft-boiled and you mix it up and you eat it, that'll metabolize a lot better, but it's actually a bad cholesterol for humans. Humans shouldn't eat eggs unless you're starving, and that's just about the only protein you could get, then more power to you. But we shouldn't eat it. It changes our hormone levels and cholesterol levels, just eating it. And it's really not a good idea. They're not, and they're advertising for eggs. They're not allowed to be called healthy or part of a good diet or good for you. It's the incredible edible egg. It is incredible. It's delicious. It is edible. I want to eat it. But, what I'm learning now is we shouldn't be eating eggs. We should have never been eating eggs. We are herbivores. We shouldn't be eating animal products. Broccoli has about as much protein as a hamburger. So, where am I getting my protein from? Mushrooms. Hey, I got some. Oh, beans. Ooh, that has some, And many of the beets, many of the different vegetables have an amount of protein in them. You should be saying, where am I getting my fiber from? You should eat a whole thing of, health salad or sweet kraut or sauerkraut, like a vegan dog or a vegan sausage, pretty fatty, as much fat as meat, delicious. I get field roast, delicious. And I'll eat, and most of what I'll eat will be a thing like of cabbage or something like that with it. But I still have that with my favorite ketchup and mustard, or Gouldens. Oh, I love that mustard. And a Sweet Baby Ray's, even though it has some chemicals in it. I'm going to start making my own. So why is the emphasis on carbs? Because giant companies sell dairy and meat, and they're not going to let anybody say anything bad. They own the advertising, advertising and media and commercials, where the average American gets their education. So that's why the emphasis is on carbs. A diet like Atkins, that would only be put out as good. I mean, they are pushing meats that are labeled as Class 1 and Class 2 carcinogens. Class 1 carcinogens, processed meats, deli meats, sausages, hot dogs, and they're in the same class as plutonium and cigarettes and asbestos. And processed meats and deli meats and sausages and hot dogs are in the same class with plutonium and cigarettes and asbestos. And, you know, your regular red meat, that's classed as a type 2 carcinogen. It's amazing that kids are allowed to eat this stuff, bacon and dogs and sausages, when it's classed the same as cigarettes. It's amazing that they're allowed to eat it. It's just driving me crazy. How many calories a day are we supposed to eat? So I have used MyFitnessPal, and there's a Dr. Paul Teich video about MyFitnessPal, and I have found out for me, and ask your doctor first, 1,500, and I should have 3 meals, and each should be about 500 calories. If I go over on one, I should go under on the next one, unless I am running more than 5 miles a day, or doing heavy weightlifting, you know, or being an immense athlete. I'm doing about 40 minutes of yoga a day and doing some work on a chin-up bar, about 1/100th of what I used to do. I recently was very ill because I got a DPT shot, or Tdap, and I gained back about 25 pounds, and decreased my ability to perform activities of daily living and working out, you know, and stuff like that. I really want to, you know, boing on that one. But that's not what this is about. How many calories a day? I employed MyFitnessPal. I found out I should be eating about 1,500. How? If I eat more than 1,500, I gain weight. If I eat less than 1,500, I lose weight. If I eat 1,500, I stay the same. Exercise level and food level would change that. Increase exercise level, I can increase the food and I won't gain weight. Increase the food and don't increase the exercise level, I will gain weight. The same with everyone. So what did we talk about here today? We said, you know, where does diabetes come from? We used to think that it came from sugar, but it doesn't. It comes from eating meat and dairy products due to something called insulin resistance. Can carbs and sugar make you fat in and of themselves? No. If you eat 3,500 calories of anything, you're probably going to get very fat unless you're running or swimming 10 miles a day, you know, lifting heavy weights, something like that. When you eat carbs, your liver converts them into glycogen, and it's stored in your liver and in your muscles. And it's either burnt as calories or stored as glycogen, and which will then be used as energy by muscles. But if you eat 3,500 calories, yes, you will gain weight no matter what you eat. As I said, I've met plenty of obese vegetarians who got fat on lentils. Why is the emphasis on carbs and not on fat when fat is the culprit? I mean, when you eat carbs, you're not blocking your arteries, blocking your heart, coating your arteries, putting fatty streaks in your arteries, laying the foundation for stroke, heart attack, cardiovascular problems. It is because giant companies pay those who would tell us things and put their own advertisements on TV, the major place that Americans are educated, media, advertising, TV, movies, and this stuff is in TV shows and this stuff is in movies, and you don't realize it. It's like watching Seinfeld, and in every episode he opens the fridge and goes, Snapple. It's a giant commercial. After a while, Snapple, it becomes something you say, it becomes something you do. It's insidious. So that's why the emphasis is on carbs. Money, how many calories a day should you eat? Probably between 1,500 and 2,000. And if you employ MyFitnessPal, it will really help you stay within that, because I put in whatever I'm eating. If you look up here, you can subscribe to my station. If you look up here, you will see a link for all of my books that are on Kindle. My latest one, Meditation to Save the World. And I hope you check them out and that they make your life a better place. Blessings.